The Home Front Tour is a kaleidoscopic view of what life was like during the war, not over there, but over here. We'll see how Americans responded in those challenging, chaotic days from Pearl Harbor to VJ Day. And then we'll be there as Japan surrenders to General Douglas MacArthur aboard the battleship Missouri on September 2nd, 1945. We'll recall the events that set the stage for that scene. We begin with a look at what Americans did over here to help end the war over there. This was the home front.
December 7th, 1941. The Second World War bursts upon America with the bursts of Japanese bombs on Pearl Harbor. It has finally happened. What the nation has heard and read about Poland and France and Britain, it now sees before it. With the wounded, the war comes home to America. Recruiting centers are jammed as Congress declares war on the Axis powers. Some who come are raring to fight. Others simply accept the inevitable. Every draftee must go on the treadmill to induction, starting with the greetings from the president to report for examination, then the probing and prodding, the testing and the tapping.
That you will serve them honestly and faithfully against all their enemies, whomsoever, and that you will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over you according to the rules and articles of war. So help you God. I do.
And 12 million Americans enter a new world with a new mixed-up alphabet. GI, KP, CO, OD, and SNAFU, snafu. If some of the new sounds are hard to make out, not so the sound of the sirens. What today is an air raid drill may tomorrow be, who knows? The traditional work of women in war becomes again a commonplace. Nurses' aides flock to hospitals, and the Red Cross takes over stores and buildings everywhere to make room for the flood of volunteers. There are new traditions in the making. Step on it, lady. Tin cans are going to war, and rubber and scrap metal, too. Everybody pitches in. Broadway and Hollywood stars hit the road to sell war bonds. Harpo Marx, Greer Garson, James Cagney, Irene Dunn, Hedy Lamarr, a cast of thousands with but one line of dialogue. Any bonds today? And glamour goes to war. The sweater girl, Lana Turner. The pinup girl, Betty Grable, and comedian Carol Lombard, who loses her life while on a bond tour. Everybody is buying bonds and stamps to finance the war. The youngsters get stamps at school, fill up their stamp books, which can be converted into bonds. And almost as valuable are food ration stamps, which every civilian receives. 16 points for a can of peas. Blue stamps for canned goods, red stamps for meat and butter. No stamps, no sale. Shortages are cropping up all over the place, from cigarettes to hairpins, from nylons to shoes. 3 pairs of leather shoes every 2 years is the ration. And those who want more, they can buy unrationed wooden-soled shoes. And the men at home are doing without, too. At left, the fabric-saving wartime suit. No collar, no cuffs, no pleats. There's plenty of money around, but less and less to buy. The black market begins to flourish. Those who shun it have to stand in line for what they want. And when they can't get it, be it a big steak or a small apartment, their complaints are met by the standard reply. Don't you know there's a war on? there's any gasoline at all, a few gallons a week is all that's allowed on an A ration card, just about enough to drive to the gas station and home again. For business and essential services, there are the more liberal B and C cards. But even with gas, there aren't enough tires to go around. Out of the wartime shortages comes the carpool. By 1944, there are 53 million Americans at work, much of it contributing to the war effort. Security is rigidly enforced. Already, too many Axis spies have been bagged by the FBI to question the need for buttoned-up lips. Now the nation is singing about Rosie the Riveter, but Rosie and the others are much too busy to carry a tune. Children's toys reflect the times. With the fathers away and the mothers at work, day nurseries spring up throughout the country. Children are forced to grow up on their own. Keep smiling is the byword, but in this upside-down, wartime world, smiling isn't always easy. Night is the only time for many to get away from war work, to shop, to enjoy themselves, and spend some of the earnings from the long overtime hours. The war produces a fraternity of night people. Hollywood Canteen, where GIs and sailors meet some of the stars who will soon be following them overseas on the biggest vaudeville circuit of them all, the USO Tours. 500,000 performances, 7,500 entertainers. The Andrews Sisters. By the spring of 1944, the great invasion of Europe is expected at any moment. The only tangible links with the loved ones overseas are the letters. The stream of V-mail letters and packages sent to those mysterious, impersonal addresses: Army Post Office, New York, Fleet Post Office, San Francisco. With the help of special volunteers, those who do not know how to write find that they are able to dictate their letters from home.
Well, what would you like me to write for you? Say, my son, we are all feeling good.
We all miss him.
Every day, his dog climbs on his bed.
And fight for him.
And we wait to your mother.
It seems that the OWI is waiting cautiously before putting out anything on these German reports. So far, all these reports have been German. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for a special announcement from the Supreme Headquarters of the Allied Expeditionary Forces from London, from Colonel R. Ernest Dupuy. Go ahead, London.
This is Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force. Under the command of General Eisenhower,
Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France.
In the crucial days of 1944, although hearts and minds are with the fighting men, the people at home are still ready to speak out on who should run the country.
President Roosevelt should run for fourth term because he has been such a good president. He has been running our war just dandy. No one at the present time could do as good a job as he has. Let's keep him in there.
No, I think President Roosevelt should not run for a fourth term. I do think, though, that he has made a wonderful leader during these times of extreme duress. However, if the war does continue beyond election time, I think we should not change horses midstream.
FDR wins again, a fourth term. Soon afterwards, he is off to meet with Churchill and Stalin at Yalta. On March 1st, 1945, he reports on the trip. He is tired and ill.
Members of the Congress.
6 weeks later, Roosevelt is gone, a casualty of the war. Harry S. Truman becomes president as the wartime leader is laid to rest at his home in Hyde Park, New York. A shocked nation intensifies its war effort. And then in May, the conflict in Europe is won, and all of the bombs and all of the factories and depots are now earmarked for Japan. But behind the scenes, a new bomb, much more powerful than all of these, has been secretly developed. It will end the war. It will alter the destiny of the world.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. It is an atomic bomb. It is a harnessing of the basic power of the universe.
August 14th, 1945. It's over, and America goes wild. It's over. A war has been won. A peace has been gained. And from over there, the men are coming back over here.
In the time between victory in Europe and the defeat of Japan, the world changed forevermore. There was Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The atomic age had begun. How those events hastened the end of the war is the story of this chapter.
September 2nd, 1945. 11 men representing the defeated Empire of Japan arrive aboard the battleship Missouri to surrender their country. For the Allied powers, General Douglas MacArthur.
We are gathered here, representatives of the major warring powers, to conclude a solemn agreement whereby peace may be restored. The terms and conditions upon which surrender of the Japanese imperial forces is here to be given and accepted are contained in the instrument of surrender now before you. I now invite the representatives of the Emperor of Japan and the Japanese government and the Japanese Imperial General Headquarters to sign the instrument of surrender at the places indicated.
For the Japanese government, Mamoru Shigemitsu. For the Japanese military, General Yoshijiro Umetsu.
The Supreme Commander for the Allied powers will now sign on behalf of all the nations at war with Japan. Will General Wainwright and General Percival step forward and accompany me while I sign?
Wainwright, who had surrendered Corregidor in 1942. Percival, who surrendered Singapore in 1942. The night previous, General Umetsu and other members of the Japanese delegation had threatened to commit suicide rather than sign the surrender document. The Emperor's intervention had forced them to stay alive. 20 minutes after it began, it was all over.
These proceedings are closed.
The ceremony had ended. The killing had ended. The war had ended, but in a manner which neither side had expected. June 1945, the last chapter begins. We have won aerial supremacy over the skies of southern Japan. The island of Kyushu, southernmost of the Japanese home islands, is completely vulnerable to land-based fighter attack. This is what aerial supremacy means. Rail traffic in Kyushu is all but stopped. The few industrial plants that have not been bombed are machine gunned and rocketed. Japan is so short of oil that when her fighters are strafed, there is no gasoline to explode. Already restricted by the submarine campaign of the United States Navy and by Air Force minefields, Japanese shipping lays to in harbor anchorage. The Japanese ships cannot move even in interior waters. But it is by night, by incendiary, and by fire that defeat becomes inevitable. The cities of Japan are wooden fire traps, bamboo buildings that burn like paper. The major cities of Japan are put to the magnesium torch. The worst fires of history burn unchecked. Nine million people are burned out of their homes. 750,000 Japanese are killed or wounded by the air raids. An official of the Ministry of the Interior writes, "The people in general are abandoning the war as the incendiary attacks of the B-29s become more severe. The whole nation is on the edge of panic. There is no defense against the fires. In spite of the assurances of Radio Tokyo, the nation can see there is no defense against the American bomber." As the ruins cool, the nation can see that Japanese heavy industry lies twisted and ruined. The military economy of Japan has come to a halt. In the face of this destruction, the Japanese diplomats secretly ask Russia, Sweden, and Switzerland to arrange peace between Japan and the United States. But fanatic elements of the Japanese military vow they will kill any government official who talks peace. The negotiations move slowly. The military, through its control of the press, keeps the Japanese people ignorant of the conferences that are being held to find a way out with honor. Honor dictates that until the emperor speaks, Japan will continue to resist. The incidence of disease begins to rise. Malnutrition, typhoid, pneumonia sweep over Japan. Until the emperor speaks, Japan will continue to resist. On July 7th, 1945, the Emperor of Japan personally requests that the war be ended as soon as possible. His language is vague, and the military does not choose to interpret it as a command to surrender, but as a command to win the war. As the crisis sharpens, the Japanese army all but seizes the country. The military recruits a home guard for a suicidal defense against the expected invasion. The military fanatics are incapable of surrendering. They're attempting to force the code of Bushido on the country. Bushido is a 16th century concept of annihilation rather than disgrace, of suicide rather than surrender. The military knows it cannot win the war. It hopes that by using suicide as a weapon, it can inflict so many casualties on the Americans that terms favorable to the Japanese will be offered. Suicide as a weapon. The Japanese Air Forces have 5,000 first-line planes in reserve. These and all other planes and pilots are expendable in kamikaze attacks. 1,900 suicide planes have been used to maul the American fleet off Okinawa. As the hysteria grows, more pilots volunteer for suicide duty. Thus, in July of 1945, the Japanese are torn between military fanatics who demand national suicide and an impotent civil government which cannot decide how to arrange surrender. The Americans are also facing a great debate, equally secret. Within the councils of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Navy and Air Force argue that given enough time, the sea blockade and aerial bombardment of Japan will end the war. But the Army feels that an invasion must take place. The Army's opinion prevails. Thus, the Joint Chiefs of Staff draw up and mark top secret Olympic Coronet, the plan to invade Japan. The first stage of the plan, Operation Olympic, November 1st, 1945. The American 6th Army and the 5th Marine Corps will invade Kyushu, the southernmost of the Japanese home islands. The second stage of the plan, Operation Coronet. 4 months later, March 1st, 1946, the American 8th and 10th Armies, landing at a point near the plain of Tokyo, will invade Honshu, the largest of the Japanese home islands. Olympic Coronet involves great risks. We must expect to take heavy casualties. The ratio has been 1 American casualty for every 2 Japanese defenders. Thus far in the Pacific, we have taken 300,000 casualties. As we have come closer to Japan, our casualties have increased. The American Secretary of War estimates that the cost of invading Japan and conquering the home islands may be 1 million American casualties. This is what Olympic Coronet may cost. 1 million American casualties. Olympic Coronet may be the bloodiest battle in American history. Tinian, 1,500 miles southeast of Japan. The island is covered by B-29s. There are over 400 heavy bombers on the island. Day by day, the bombers are armed with high explosive and incendiary bombs. Until the invasion begins, the bombers will continue the aerial offensive. On one corner of the island, a special group of planes, the 509th Bomb Group. The planes of the 509th have been radically changed on the interior. There's nothing externally significant about this bomb group, but it is virtually sealed off from the rest of the Air Force. The 509th is not sent into the mass formations that bomb Japan daily. The group is ordered to fly a few missions to Japan, but never with the rest of the Air Force. The 509th flies only minor missions, and its formations never number over 6 planes. The planes are armed with high explosives. They sometimes carry a single 10,000-pound bomb of peculiar shape. Only one man of the group knows what lies ahead. The 509th suffers no casualties, and its few missions cause only negligible damage. August 6, 1945. The 509th Bomb Group has a major mission. The first atomic bomb is placed in the bomb bay of an American B-29. If the plane crashes on takeoff, there is some danger that the atomic bomb will explode and kill everything on the island of Tinian. Thus, the bomb is put into the bomb bays disassembled. The bomb is extremely heavy. On a previous night, 4 B-29s carrying an almost equal weight have crashed on takeoff. Directly after takeoff, the technician charged with arming the atomic weapon climbs into the bomb bay and begins to reassemble the bomb. Since the plane is to maintain strict radio silence, there will be no way of knowing until the bomb is dropped whether or not the weapon has been fused properly. Hiroshima. Earlier in the morning, there has been one air raid alert, but the all clear has sounded. Bombardier is not to bomb by radar. The city must be visible to the bombardier's eye. The weather over Hiroshima, clear. The bomb run lasts exactly 4 minutes, 8:11 to 8:15, Hiroshima's time. Dead, 80,000. Wounded, 80,000. At first, the Japanese do not know what has hit them. They can see that most wounds come from blast and heat. Japanese do not understand the symptoms of radiation sickness. One plane has carried a bomb equal to that of more than 2,000 bombers carrying conventional weapons. One plane has carried a bomb equal to 20,000 tons of TNT. After Hiroshima, the Americans will not lose 1 million men in an invasion of Japan. After Hiroshima, Japanese fanaticism will crumble. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the emperor will demand that Japan be surrendered. The war has ended. But what has begun?
As we conclude this video series on World War II, it seems appropriate to consider the verdict of history about this entire period of world conflict. One verdict is simple and simply stated: good prevailed. When faced with tyranny, overwhelming and overpowering as it was, the forces of freedom won out. We look back on World War II as a noble war, America's last conflict with clearly identifiable enemies and clear-cut patriotic goals. Unlike later conflicts like Vietnam, there was an all-out war effort with broad support on the home front. Another legacy of World War II has been the Cold War, the ensuing and pervasive period of enmity and distrust between the Soviet Union and the United States. A remembrance of the horrors of Hitler's anti-Semitism has been a spur to the creation of the State of Israel and the continuing determination of the Jews to never again be victims. There are, of course, others, but perhaps one of the most important legacies of World War II is that while it did not prevent future wars, it may have helped prevent future atomic or nuclear wars. The lessons of Hiroshima and Nagasaki appear, for now at least, to have prevailed. The danger is that their impact diminishes with time. When people no longer remember the awful, awesome things that took place there, the world indeed will be in mortal jeopardy. In closing this series, the words of the philosopher Santayana seem apt: those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. For the CBS Video Library of World War II, I'm Walter Cronkite.
Thank you.